people will absolutely rave, even if they don't write a review. They will rave to all of their family and friends if your service department is awesome. If you make them feel like you're trustworthy, you tell them the truth, you educate them in the process.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Golden Wrench Podcast, where I get to talk to anybody and pretty much everybody I want to talk to when it comes to the fixed ops side of the business. Now, I got a guest for me today. I am so excited about this guest. I think we've already been chatting for well over the time that we're actually going to record today, but it is going to be a very fun conversation with some amazing topics. But hey, we can't create cool content like this without our sponsors. So we're going to take a moment. Here's a quick message from our sponsor.
For years, I've been saying that you have to process your way to profitability, and no one knows that better than the folks at Repair 360. You all know how important it is to have a fast, streamlined used car reconditioning process. Remember, time kills profit. Getting a used car frontline ready in less time while providing transparent communication between departments is what Repair 360 is all about. With Repair 360's automated used car recon manager, you will drive recon times down while giving sales the visibility they need to stop complaining. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about that part. Anyways, you have to check out their website at repair360.com and see how they can revolutionize your reconditioning process.
All right, guys. I told you I got a guess. I got a guess for you. I got the one, the only, the oh so famous. I can hear him giggling in the background. I have Shaun Raines with me. Shaun, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh man, I am better than I deserve. Thank you for inviting me on, Jason. I appreciate that.
Dude, I'm glad that we get a chance to jam. I mean, it's been a while. I feel like we see each other at events and in passing, but I was really thinking about it. I was going, it's been a while since we've recorded together. And I'm like, who better to jam about some fixed op stuff than the one, the only, Shaun Raines. So
well, and you're an OG in this world, man, making this type of content in the podcasting world. It's definitely good to be together.
I'm just a guy with a microphone and an orange shirt.
You do love the orange.
I do love the orange, man. It is fun. That's actually why I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, by the way. I found a state that doesn't question my obsession with the color, because my car is orange too. So then I
not know that.
Yeah. Underwear and socks as well. I swear to God, I'm not even joking. But everywhere I go here, they're just like, go Vols, and I'm like,
oh, that's right.
Heck yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You are harmonizing with the choir. Like that's did you know that going in, or just ended up being a happy accident?
I love telling people I knew that going in, but it was just a very happy accident. It just didn't work out that way. I'm like,
great one. This great one to fall into. Yeah.
It does. All right. Look, guys, this is what happens when two old friends kind of jump on a podcast. And I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of fun rabbit holes and stuff we're going to go down today. But hey, Shaun, you know what? I love kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story. Because I'm always funnily fascinated. I don't think anybody just wakes up one day and goes, yeah, the automotive industry. That sounds like fun. So let's start there, Shaun. How did you get started in this crazy little world called the automotive industry?
I feel like I've told this story way too many times because I've been in it a long, long time. I'll try to give the short version, but as you and I think everybody that knows me, they know that I'm not really known for brevity, but I'll give it a shot. I like to tell people the humorous part is I got into the car business because I fell in love with a girl, which is really actually true. I was at a junior college in a music program in Auburn, Washington, a little south of Seattle. And I didn't want to move home as the summer was approaching, and so I got a job in an automotive parts warehouse, big wholesale operation, and I ended up working for that company for almost 10 years. Had an amazing mentor, the guy just a guy by the name of Steve Sims. Not that he'll see this, but if he ever did, I would certainly want to give him a tip of the cap and thank him for he taught me a lot about hard work and ethics, but just really kind of understanding warehouse operations as it related to car parts. And I got to not just work in warehousing and logistics, but I went through their entire sales training, literally learning from some of the most amazing parts salespeople that I've ever met in my life. Anyway, all of that parlayed into everything else that we, have to this day, and that is technology, internet, all of that started to expand. And as soon as the internet was starting to make its way into industries, I met somebody who worked at Reynolds and Reynolds who had a deal with Microsoft CarPoint, which was a lead provision service of Microsoft back in the day. And they had a little Seattle office, and I got on that team. And I think I got hired or maybe signed my employment offer in '99. I think I started early 2000, and that was the beginning of all things internet. So there was no paid search, there was no SEO, there was no Google, there was no Facebook, there was no MySpace when I got started really in the first internet part of the industry. And I've loved just about every second of it because I feel like one of these people that was really fortunate, blessed by timing. Like timing
Mhm.
oftentimes is everything. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I really did fall in love with a girl. I didn't want to move home, so I got a job. It happened to be in an automotive parts warehouse, and then all these other things started to happen in the evolution of technology as it related to industry and automotive. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it.
Well, that's typically what happens, right? I find, look, people get into the business one of three ways. All right, either they're born into the business. All right, they stumbled their way into the business through a fluke series of events, like falling in love with a girl, um, you know, or like me, you get conned into the business. And it's look, I think there's a lot of us that got conned into the business back when I
Yeah.
started, and I started around the same time, about '99. And no, I saw an ad in the paper, make six figures a year, no college education required.
Hmm.
That sounded like something I wanted to do. You know,
Money talks, right?
money talks, right? And then, of course, I had a roommate that was working at a dealership at the time. So I started putting one and one together. I knew how much of a moron he was and kept seeing how big his paychecks were. And I'm like, wait a second here.
Yeah.
There you go. I got conned into the business. But all right, let's get into some service, because when we're talking about the business, obviously one of my favorite parts of the business. I've had the opportunity to own a couple dealerships, and it's just like I love my parts, my service department, my fixed ops. I think what it was, I think for me it was, my mother growing up managed a couple steakhouses. And I
Mm.
remember going to visit her as a kid and seeing just what was going on in the front of the house, and just this music and the click clattering of silverware and fancy wine glasses, and then walking to the back of the house and seeing nothing but just chaos and shit flying and things on fire. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I like this, and so I think when I got into the car business and I got into the back and saw what was going on, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I know this place. This is fun. Later on, found out, hey, this affords everything. This pretty much pays for everything. So it needs a big part of it. But I want to get into the service experience, which I think is talked about a lot. But I want to take it from a perspective first, from the marketing experience and then an in-person experience. And I'd love to kind of get your take on those two separately. Let's start off with the marketing experience. You've had the opportunity to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm not talking about the movie, but in the industry, from a marketing strategy, what people are executing. What have you seen has been some of the best, let's call it, marketing service experience that you've seen?
Mm. First, I'd say I'd just start with there's unfortunately still so much neglect of fixed ops and both service and parts. Service is probably the place where you will hit pay dirt a little bit faster with getting smarter with your marketing than in the parts side. That's a little different. But um, some of the most effective things are actually the most simple things, which is really just making sure that you've added um, separated campaigns, meaning they're not being loaded into just one giant fixed ops campaign, or worse yet, you're just throwing a ton of keywords into a list that might also actually include things from a vehicle sales perspective. Surprisingly enough, there are still a lot of really lazy. I don't want to say that the vendors are that way, but the campaign setup and management and how they run, just not particularly thoughtful. So, as far as the best things to run, it's usually by the way of getting people's attention and taking your own user data that you already have and spending the time to actually architect a campaign that makes sense to capture people, to keep people, and to make them happy. And you know, it I don't want to make it sound like it's just the easiest thing to do, but if you succeeded in spending the money to advertise a vehicle and actually got somebody to come to the dealership and sign on the dotted line and buy it or lease it, they now are a customer of yours. If you don't, in those moments, spend the time necessary to set people up for great service experience while they're actually having maybe their first sales experience, that's a huge missed opportunity. But that's typically actually where it begins for dealers that are really successful, is they're letting the customer know what to expect now that they're in a relationship together, right? And
It is a relationship,
going,
isn't it?
yeah, it's a
It is.
so now that you have that relationship, don't fixate so much on the corny stuff. I don't think that a lot of people, there are some, but there are a lot of people, I'm one of them. I
Yeah.
don't care if my local Toyota dealership where I take my Tundra for service, I don't care if they wish me a happy birthday. I don't care if they have my anniversary on file and they say, "Hey, happy anniversary." That to me, and I'm a Gen Xer, so maybe it's my generation, I don't know, but that stuff, it never feels particularly genuine to me. But when they stay in touch specifically about my truck, like they care about it because they know how much I love it, and
Yeah.
that communication, it resonates with me. I like that. Even when they over communicate, I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going to be forgetting about my 60,000-mile service because these guys are always. So I would tell dealers one of the things that they should do is when they begin a relationship with somebody from the sales perspective, set all those expectations and then deliver on them from a service experience, because it will help you um, in both not having to overspend on marketing campaigns, but it'll also help your marketing campaigns land better because you started to allow somebody to understand what you were going to provide to them from the very, very get go.
Well, and look, I want to kind of unpack what you did, because Shaun, you covered a lot in a short period of time. So, if you're out there watching and listening right now, I mean, there was a few rabbit holes I want to go down that you kind of brought up, and I'm 100% with you. I think one of the most important things when it comes to thinking of a marketing experience, and maybe this is a little bit easier on the service side because of the data that we have on the customer,
Mhm.
is really define your audiences first. Right?
Mm,
I think I posted about this the other day because I've seen this happen too often where, like we're so quick to create an offer or a piece of creative or some type of hook to bring you into it. But we do that first, but then we figure out who the audience is going to be, right? And that's one thing from a data perspective. We have a lot in our fixed ops business. Look, we know who our best customers are. We
mhm,
know that Mr. Johnson comes in for every single service. In fact, he actually owns 2 cars with us, and he comes in for every single service. Every time that there's a warranty recall, he's like one of the first 10 people to call us and to schedule it. Like, we know Mr. Johnson is is just very loyal to us. Does it really matter to Mr. Johnson if I hit him up with a $10 off oil change, or would it be better off that I did something like, "Hey, Mr. Johnson, you're in our gold class customers. So you know what? Today, your detail, it's on us."
mhm.
You know what I mean? Because we have this data sitting in front of us, and
Yeah.
I think too often we try to approach this kind of like one size fits all. I'm curious what are your thoughts? Do you see the same thing happen?
Yeah, I mean, just starting with what you just finished saying there, I've never been a one size fits all kind of person.
Right? Yeah.
And I think that you can get really myopic like that in our industry, especially on the retail side.
Of course.
You could use examples of, from a service or sales perspective, speaking the wrong language. I use Subaru as an example all the time. Like, Subaru buyers don't want to be talked to like they're buying a Chevrolet. They're just different kinds of people. You're still selling cars, and I understand, because there are a lot of people that want to fight me on this. I'm like, I get, yeah, it's like the same thing, road to sale or whatever your methodology is. There are a lot of similarities, but it doesn't mean that the consumer who you're trying to get their attention, and that's the audience. There are niches within the audience, and automotive is a perfect example of, it's a niche industry filled with tons of niches. And even on the retail side, you're going to have, unless you are just a single point of one brand, and then even within that, you will find that truly understanding your audience is really important. So, no, I totally agree with kind of where you're at on that. I don't see it really any differently.
Well, and the cool thing is I look, I've been asked for years, like what is the best marketing strategy that I can run, right? And I've always given the same answer, but I've found it to not always, even though it's a straightforward answer and it's a simple thing to do. Well, maybe not so simple, but how rarely it gets executed, right? And the best marketing strategy we can ever run, regardless if it's on the service side or the variable side, is where the customer feels known by you, the company. So, for example, like if I know, Shaun, you are like trucks, and I don't know, you're driving a Tacoma, or I don't know, what kind of truck do you drive? Actually, I'm curious.
A Toyota Tundra.
Okay, geez, I was close, wasn't I?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the beard and the flat bill hat, man. That's actually what threw it.
Yeah,
requirement to drive a Tundra, right?
I could have wore a cowboy hat today, so
that's true. That's true. But I'm just giving you a hard time. But no, you know what I mean. Like, I know this about you. Why not cater my messaging and cater to what the information I have about you? And I think when you're able to talk to a customer, and they feel like they feel known by you as a company, that hands down is the best marketing strategy. It's the most effective thing. You can feel you feel like, oh, wait, these people do know me. It's no different than say, hey, last time when you came in, we did this and this. I had mentioned about doing this next time. We should probably get this book now. That's just a lot of different data points. Now I say this, and I'm going to push it actually one step farther, because I think there's actually, we've been using data that's currently in real time in front of us. I'm seeing a trend right now of a handful of new companies that are coming out that are looking at predictive modeling. And this, I get really geeky on this data set. I know I'm finding a rabbit hole, and I apologize, guys, but if you're watching and listening, follow with me on this, right? It's one thing to make impactful decisions based on the data you have. It's another thing to take the data you have and actually start making out predictive models, in the sense of like, okay, there are 13 non-franchise entities, all right, competing in my market, competing for that oil change. And this could be the Costco's, the Jiffy Lubes, the Mr. Lubes, the Joe's Auto Shops. All of these competitors out there are going after the same customer for the same service, right? Well, I know that, hey, these group of people have left me and gone service elsewhere. Right. Well, what's similar about those? What patterns? What's consistent? Is it the distance we are from the dealership? Is it where they're located in the city? What are these patterns that we can look at and actually start predicting things out? Anyways, I'm going down a rabbit hole. So I do this sometimes.
Yeah.
But this is I think both of our points out there is like making it audience first is the key. Now let's get into the in-person one. All right. What has been some of the best in-person experience? And I'm not just talking about like service and sales or automotive in general. What has been some of the best in-person experiences you had, and how can we translate that out to stuff that we can do inside our dealerships?
I've had both good and bad service experiences, but there's two. Well, before I answer that question, I want to say one thing about the service marketing part of this conversation, because I think it's really important for especially folks that are in the dealership, or if they're using an agency, whomever's running that, especially the general managers, the service managers, the dealer principals. Always remember that your service department has something that your sales department doesn't have exactly the same. And that is, you have a schedule of every time I'm supposed to be getting my Tundra serviced, right? From an oil change to a major service. And so it makes the job of, well, what kind of marketing will be the best for our customers? Once you started that relationship, it kicks off a schedule that you can build marketing campaigns around. By the way, marketing campaigns that cost a lot less, because you can actually pay a lot less if you were doing a really good job of harvesting and keeping fresh the email addresses. And if you have permission to be texting or messaging with people, where that just changes the game, because all of that form of marketing, to your point of personalizing it, you know me, you know I love my Tundra and all these things, it throws the door open wide. So that's different than, yes, you can have some idea of maybe when I'm coming to the end of a lease, right? You can have some idea of predicting when I might be ready for a newer vehicle and start to market to me that way. But it's very, very different when you're trying to actually market to people to sell them the cars versus servicing them. So I think that's important. And that also segues nicely into the Tundra that I drive right now. I bought from a Toyota dealership in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. And the sales experience was great. They did a fantastic job. I have moved since buying that to a different part of, and I'm a little kind of outside, more in the country.
Sure.
And so I don't service there. If I was close to them, I probably would. They didn't do anything that would have made me say, I don't want to take my Tundra there for service. But I go to a Toyota dealership. I go to the one that's closest to me. They do not have a particularly great reputation in this little small town, but they've always done great service. The thing that I want to mention about having a marketing campaign that's based on, well, I know all this stuff about this new relationship with this person that bought a Tundra from us, and now it puts this schedule together that I might actually do marketing that doesn't mean that I have to spend a bunch of extra money, say within Google or in social paid advertising. But when I bought my Tundra, I had the conversations with my salesperson. I talked to the used car manager because he knew somebody that I knew. Ended up talking to the general manager because they were on a website provider that I was with for a short time before my old employer, before that came after me on non-compete. So it was really kind of fun to have all these conversations with these guys. But every single one of them was also hearing me talk about how I was looking for a specific Tundra and found what I wanted, and then what I was going to do to it. And that included lift kit, not a leveling kit. That included very expensive wheels, very expensive tires. And if they were smart at that time, they would have been actually building that into the notes profile of me.
100%.
And they would have said, hey, right, it's just instant money for them, instant service opportunity for them. Problem is, they didn't offer any of those services, even if they were going to sublet it and still make some money and they maybe work with an off-road shop, does stuff like that. Nothing.
That's a shame.
So that experience just completely fell flat, because I did, when I was buying it, I was asking them, hey, do you guys do any of this stuff? Be happy to give you this kind of business. And like, no. So you have to really think about what you want to accomplish with your store. And if you sell a lot of trucks in Texas, you should probably be spending at least some of your time, instead of having another cigarette, find out if any of your customers that are really big truck fans, and if you sell tons of trucks, how many people are going in and accessorizing them, and can you do that at the dealership? It may not be worth it for you to add that. Let's just be fair. For some dealers, like, it's just not. It's
worth it. It's always worth it.
So I will not say that they have to, but if you don't, you're missing oftentimes opportunities. Think of being a Jeep franchise and not being able to sell all kinds of accessories to Jeep enthusiasts, whether they're, buying a unlimited, the old school two-door, if they're buying the Gladiator, just a massively huge opportunity to accessorize, and that's money for the dealership, and there's tons of margin in that type of business. So anyway, that's a huge opportunity. But I do want to tell you about a video I made about a real experience that my mom had, rest in peace, Mom. this is now several years ago. My parents lived in Arizona. I was there visiting. I was actually speaking at a 20 group in Scottsdale, stayed with my parents because I'm legit. I don't need to stay with all those mucky muck people. I just, sleep on the floor at my mom's house. It was awesome. But while I was there, it was an extended weekend because she wanted to buy a new car. It was a Toyota Camry. So I helped her we got online. We found what we wanted. The whole experience was good. I won't name the dealership because they were a bag of jerk holes with a capital A when it came to fixing a deep scratch that was on the hood of the car. And my mom loved everything else that was exactly the Camry that she wanted. So she was willing to say, okay, well, I'll take the WEO and I'll bring it back because it wasn't a buffable scratch.
Mm.
And several weeks later, she scheduled that appointment. I was already back home. And they didn't tell her a lot of things. So clearly they couldn't do it. They didn't even have a collision center, but it was something that they sublet to another shop. And it wasn't a shop that was like 5 miles away. They put like 40 miles on my mom's car. And my mom was so detail oriented that she noticed. And when she finally got out in her car and was checking it out, she's like, what? She walked back in. Anyway, terrible experience from the service. I don't remember if it was the manager or her service writer. Very like condescending, like how dare you ask us, like this is just what we do, kind of dismissive, like we don't do it here, we send it out someplace. And it just my poor mom is not a controversial, combative, wants to have this confrontational experience with anyone really. And that's what this dealership delivered to her, when all they should have done was, yeah, hey, you actually bought a car that some people would say, I just don't want to have to fix that big old gash on the front of the hood. But you did, and we're going to make it right. And everything about making it right should make it so that you wouldn't do what they did. And what they did was made my mom go to her church and all the other places, because they're in a retirement community, and told every single person that she knew what had happened. And I guarantee you that meant that other people were willing to drive an extra 13 miles to the other Toyota dealership in town. And my mom never took her car back there for service. And so I always use this as an example of, there were two experiences that happened in that. And this happens today, right now, as you and I record this episode. People are spending money to get consumers to come and buy cars from them and to begin a relationship with them and an experience with them. And most people don't want you standing over them through the whole journey. They want you to leave them the freak alone. If you did a good job in your marketing and your advertising, depending on how much people even really need all of that, they know what they want. They come to your dealership because they can't go anywhere else to get it, right? You have to go to the dealership to get the car. You get the car. Now you have a relationship where, man, this should be peanut butter and jelly sandwiches meant to be together. And we're never, ever going to do anything to compromise this trust you just gave us, the money we spent to get you here. Now you bought the car. And why in the world would we then allow our service department to deliver an experience that means they'll never buy another car from us, and they'll never service from us, and they'll do exactly the absolute opposite of being a referral? They will repel business from us because of how we treated them. Like, that's a real story. And it just blows my mind, because I think if your service department is, I think if it's doing that to customers, you should get rid of those people as quickly as possible, retrain, whatever you have to do, because that part of your business is what keeps the boats floating in the harbor when times are tough. Right? When you don't have inventory that's surged back to about normal levels. People will absolutely rave, even if they don't write a review. They will rave to all of their family and friends if your service department is awesome. If you make them feel like you're trustworthy, you tell them the truth, you educate them in the process. And I think last thing I'll say, I'll take a breath here. I think one of the reasons why I get passionate about this, because I don't work in fixed ops now. I just happen to have been in the industry for a long time, but I was a service writer. I was certified to write service. And I remember what it was like when I would take an extra 5 minutes to explain to somebody that didn't know anything about the mechanics of a car. And I would explain to them wearable parts, or I would explain to them, like, well, this is what happens when that CV boot tears on your front axle, or this is why we're recommending that you replace your timing belt with this water pump job, because by the way, they're all coming off the car. Like, when you would show people that, and back in my day, it was even diagrams. We didn't have a whole lot of screens to show people, but opening the books and showing this is what's happening in your car. And then all of a sudden people would be like, thank you for educating me. Thank you for taking the time to tell me what this is about and then answer my questions. That's called giving people a great experience. Their time was valuable, their interest was valuable, and I took the opportunity that I should be to proactively get them to a place where now we're more aligned and they trust me. And now just never betray that. And guess what? You'll probably be okay.
Well, and it really does kind of come down to trust, right? And I mean, and again, when I think of the in-person experience, the goal and objective for the marketing experience is actually, for me, no different than the in-person experience, right? Like, I mean, I think anybody that goes in there, they, to your point, the relationship, the trust, they want to feel connected, they want to feel known. I had an amazing mentor of mine who, when I first took over my Mitsubishi dealership, he said something to me I thought was really kind of funny. I mean, I questioned him quite a bit about it, but then I understood later. He said, look, all you have to do to be successful in owning a car dealership is you need to sell 5,000 cars. So that's
no
it.
problem.
He goes, yeah, that's all you have to do. And once you're done selling 5,000, just stop selling. So what do you mean by that? And then, of course, now I understand where he was going with this, right? And this was coming back to the service side of it, right? He goes, you just need 5,000 customers, all right, that have done business with you. You created relationships with them, all right, and you service the living crap out of them, all right, and they will do the opposite of what your mom did. They do the opposite and go out and share with the world. All right, how amazing the experience is and how awesome it is. And here's the one thing I find fascinating with the word experience is that it can go both ways, right? It goes both bad or good. All right. But regardless, experiences happen regardless if we're intentional about it or not. It's going to happen. As an industry, we might as well be intentional about it, because the experience is going to happen regardless if we're not intentional about it, or from the beginning, right? But the one thing I have found about experiences, and I want to get your take on this, I know we're getting towards the tail of our time, but I want to get your take on this, right? Is that experiences are always made or broken not by big things, but by little things. I remember when I had I made a decision one day, and my service advisors rioted on me, by the way. I thought I was they were going to come at me with pitchforks and fires for what I did. What I did is I took that coffee machine that we had in the lounge, and I moved it to behind the service advisor's counter, right?
How dare you?
How dare I, right? And in my head was going to be like, look, when someone comes up, the first question I want you to ask them is, how do you take their coffee? How do you take your coffee? All right, reach behind you, go tap, tap, tap on the buttons, then turn back around and get them checked in, and I want to get to the point where you make a note of that. All right. So because my ultimate goal, it was a little thing, but my ultimate goal, I know it sounded silly. I mean, most people watching or listening might think it's silly, but my ultimate goal is that I wanted to be able to have a coffee ready to that specific customer before they even walked in the dealership. All right, just like 2 sugars, 1 cream, however the hell they took it, and it's because I thought this was a little thing, and it was I digress. But if you see the same, what little things do you think can make or break that experience?
Well, those are really great examples. I think, like I was talking about the Tundra that I'm driving right now. I think if the people that I were talking to now, even the ones that were on the sales side, if they were floating that into the CRM, making real notes for follow-up, then they would have triggered something where all of a sudden now service could reach out with something so near and dear to my desires for my vehicle.
Right?
I think that's huge.
Communication, right? Little things.
Yeah.
That
So
makes a big deal. That's a huge thing.
It does, and to be honest with you, I am actually preparing a presentation that I'm doing next month, on brand, and, um, there are a lot of dealerships that say the same thing about their brand, thinking that they're differentiating themselves. For example, they'll talk about, "Oh, we've Starbucks coffee in the, showroom," or whatever. That's not brand differentiation. And no one, unless they're totally freaking crazy, thinks that the best cup of coffee in town is served at any car dealership. I don't care what vehicles you sell. But when you do what you just said, which is make the experience, no matter whether we're serving them Folgers or Starbucks or something in between, when people drink coffee, right? And so telling somebody to take a little extra special care in the way that they provide an experience, right? Again,
Sure.
you have a relationship established with somebody. And so now they come into your store and you've instructed your people, hey, ask them how they take their coffee. They even take notes of that, put it in their customer file. Now
Right.
you know every single time they come back in.
That was the goal.
Yep, that's a very it seems I think some people would think that's kinda, let's just bum it's like it's trivial. But it's not. To your point of this part of the recording, those small things, actually are probably the ones that should have the most weight put on them in terms of, how they matter to people, and they will make a difference. And I say this all the time when it comes to brand. If you have a dealership and you're trying to provide great experiences, great. Just remember that it also is the effect of your brand on those people. And those people are the ones that define your brand. Every experience they have with you, you cared enough to ask them how they like their coffee. You made notes of that. So now every time they come in, you just make them a cup with a little, maybe you're like Harvey on Suits and you knew that Donna put a little splash of vanilla and that's what was the game changer of your cup of coffee. For me, it's a little splash of organic maple syrup, just a tiny, because I don't like my coffee too sweet. But if my dealership remembered that,
Holy crap, right?
yes, it's just gonna make me like you more. It's gonna make me, by the way, it also buys mercy and grace for the moments
Oh,
when we're
yes,
not
it does.
perfect in our business. And everything you can do like that, that softens me up to give you it's okay. Hey, nobody's perfect. Everyone needs that in their business. Car dealers
Humanize.
are
Yep.
maybe at the top of the list.
No, you're so right. In fact, actually, I recently did a podcast with Les Silver, and he had a great way to kind of sum that up. He called it the 1 minute insurance policy.
I love it.
And I thought this was amazing, right? And it was like, for a service advisor to make them a cup of coffee or, ask them about their day or, hey, can I get you a paper? What are you interested in? Or can I grab you a magazine? What was you interested in? That kind of thing is just like, it's just to be a human for 1 minute. All right. Before the transaction started, he called it the 1 minute insurance policy because to your point, I might need that later on
For
if
sure.
something happens and you
For
come back
sure.
to it. Look, Sean, I know we're towards the tail end of our time. I think this has been, and I know that I could easily jam with you on this for at least another 30 or 40 minutes. But hey, for everybody out there watching and listening right now who would love to connect with you, Sean, and learn more about, what you're doing, what's the best way to connect with you?
Probably LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find there. But email's also super simple. That's Shaun, as long as you spell it the right way, which is SHAUN at hiredgunsagency.com. That's probably the best place to get me as far as email. But then, and I know there are some people out there that probably have even forgotten. But if you have my phone number, you can hit me up there. And yeah, but LinkedIn's easy place to get connected with me. I am on other social media, but I don't really treat them like a business thing. So if you happen to connect with me, or if you are connected with me on Facebook, I don't post a lot there, and then when I do post there, it's not really car business stuff. It's just me.
You're exactly the same as me. I'm like if you get a reply from me on LinkedIn, I guarantee you it's me.
Yeah.
It's not somebody else. It legitly is going to be me. Hey, for
Yeah.
everybody out there watching, listening, we thank you. You're awesome. All right. We hope today that we were able to bring you guys some value and a couple new nuggets. Hey, if you found some value and some nuggets in this, the best and most important thing that you can do for us is share the show. All right.
Yeah.
It helps us. Shaun, you create content. You know how it is for us content creators out there to get it out there is one of the biggest ways that you could give us a big thumbs up and a high five is share the show. Hey, Shaun, thanks again for taking the time today. This has been a lot of fun. For everybody out there watching and listening, you guys have yourself an amazing day. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.